The towering wooden doors groaned softly as Ava Wallace, only 5 years old, stepped nervously into the courtroom. In her tiny hand, she clutched a thick leash attached to Max, a German shepherd whose scar along his side spoke of past battles. Before we move on, please let us know where you're listening from. All eyes followed the fragile girl as she hesitated, yet pressed on toward the witness stand. Every step seemed heavier than the last. Judge Edward Harmon, seasoned and stern, leaned forward thoughtfully. He knew this small girl, this trembling child, held the key to everything. At the defense table sat Daniel Mercer, the accused. His expression was unnervingly calm, even smug. As a software engineer, his quiet, calculated appearance belied the sinister accusations against him. He had been charged with attempting to abduct Ava, yet his defense was ironclad. No DNA, no fingerprints, no confession, and a witness who could not, or would not, speak. But as Ava sat down, a moment happened that none expected. Her soft green eyes met Mercer's. Her fingers, small and unsteady, made a tiny signal. One taught through weeks of therapy. Only 2 beings caught it, Max. And Judge Harmon. Max went rigid instantly. His body tightened, ears pricked, and a deep, guttural growl rumbled from his chest. His eyes never left Mercer. The courtroom stiffened in tension as whispers filled the air. This wasn't simple obedience. This was recognition. This was primal. Judge Harmon slammed his gavel down. 15-minute recess, he declared. His voice, though steady, carried urgency. Something serious had just happened. Something the judge could not ignore. Outside the courtroom, Ava knelt beside Max, burying her hands in his soft fur. Her mother, Rachel Wallace, bent down too, her voice gentle but shaken. "Sweetheart, are you all right?" Ava didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her grip tightened on Max, pulling him close. He was her only anchor. Watching silently nearby, FBI agent Scott Brennan exchanged a knowing glance with Judge Harmon. "Something spooked that dog," Brennan murmured. "I'd bet my badge he knows Mercer." Meanwhile, in a private room, Mercer's calm shattered. His lawyer, Victor Langston, watched as Mercer nervously replayed the courtroom moment. "She knows," Mercer muttered. Langston pressed, but Mercer waved him off. Still, his mind raced. He hadn't anticipated the dog. And yet, it wasn't always this way for Ava. Before the horror, Ava had been radiant and talkative. She loved bedtime stories, fairy tales, and afternoons twirling in the backyard. But everything changed that spring day. Rachel, watching from the window while on the phone, noticed Ava playing happily. She stepped away for just 4 minutes. When she returned, the gate hung ajar. A black van idled by the curb. Beside Ava knelt a man, Mercer. "I have puppies," he said sweetly. "Want to come see them?" Before Rachel's mind could process, she shouted, "Ava!" Mercer's friendly facade darkened. He grabbed Ava's arm. Across the street, retired nurse Betty Caldwell saw it all. "Hey, get away from that child," she yelled. Mercer hesitated. Ava yanked free and bolted into Rachel's waiting arms. Within moments, Mercer vanished, leaving only terror behind. The police arrived quickly. FBI agents Brennan and Dana Matthews took control. The profile was chilling. Similar abductions, promises of puppies, a black van, and missing children. But Ava, she shut down. Completely, she wouldn't speak, wouldn't play, wouldn't draw. At night, silent nightmares overtook her. Rachel and her husband, Mark Wallace, tried everything. Then the therapist suggested something different. A therapy dog. Enter Max. Once a heroic K9, Max bore his own scars. During a raid, he had saved lives but was injured, forced into early retirement. Scheduled for euthanasia, he was rescued by Dr. Megan Clark, who believed he still had purpose. When Ava met Max, it was an instant. At first, she stayed distant. Max stayed calm, steady, and patient. Slowly, Ava reached out. Then one day, as Max sat quietly, Ava whispered words no one thought they'd hear again. "Good boy," her parents cried softly. The wall was cracking. Ava was beginning to trust again. As the trial resumed, tension filled the courtroom. Ava clung tightly to Max's leash as Claire Monroe led the prosecution. Witnesses described Mercer's tactics, including Betty Caldwell, who recounted Ava's near abduction. Throughout it all, Ava stayed silent until her testimony. Nervously sitting on the stand, Ava gripped Max tightly. When asked who had been with her that day, she slowly pointed right at Mercer. The defense objected, but Judge Harmon allowed it. Then, Ava gave her silent signal. Once again, Max reacted. A low growl echoed. Eyes locked on Mercer. The courtroom shifted. Even Judge Harmon leaned forward. "Miss Monroe," he asked, "has this dog ever encountered the defendant before?" "No, Your Honor." Turning to Mercer, Harmon asked, "Have you met this dog?" Mercer clenched his fists but said nothing. Claire Monroe immediately called for a recess. Something bigger was unfolding. Racing against time, Brennan and his team followed new evidence. Soil samples from Mercer's van pointed to a remote cabin deep in the woods. With Max leading the way, the team arrived. Inside, the cabin seemed empty until Brennan noticed floorboards that didn't belong. Underneath, a hidden basement, sealed away from the light and warmth of the world above. The small room was cluttered with forgotten remnants of stolen childhoods. Broken dolls missing eyes, tiny sneakers caked in dirt, torn backpacks, and faded crayon drawings that looked desperate and hurried. It was a graveyard of hope, frozen in time. In the farthest, darkest corner, a fragile form huddled against the cold stone wall. It was Sophie Lang, missing for 6 months. She was alive. Her sunken eyes fluttered weakly as she registered the presence of strangers. Panic and confusion danced in her gaze until the flashlight beam illuminated the FBI jacket worn by Scott Brennan. "Help," she rasped, barely louder than a whisper. At that very moment, Max, who had been standing tensely by the entrance, let out a sharp, emotional whine. Brennan rushed forward, his hands steady despite his racing heart. "It's okay, sweetheart. We're here now," he said softly. The moment they fell away, Sophie lunged into his arms with what little strength she had left. "You're safe. No one will hurt you now," Brennan assured her, his voice fierce yet tender. Behind him, the entire team stood frozen in grim silence. They had seen dark things before, but this felt personal. Deep inside, every single person in that basement knew the true justice had yet to be served. The monster who did this was still sitting in a courtroom pretending to be innocent. That would change very, very soon. Back in court, Sophie's rescue shifted everything. Claire Monroe stood tall and confident. Your DNA was found on the chains, your tires matched the cabin, and Sophie Lang is alive to testify. Mercer's composure collapsed. His hands shook, and then something primal happened. Max, lying calmly at Ava's feet, suddenly stirred. His eyes locked directly onto Mercer. Then came the growl. Max's entire focus, his entire being, was aimed at Mercer. He wasn't just reacting to Ava's signal this time. He knew. Mercer's eyes flickered nervously toward the dog, and for the first time in days of hearings, his mask cracked. His lips began to move. Barely. At first, no one caught it. But then louder, barely above a whisper, raw and trembling, he muttered, I want to change my plea." Gasps echoed like gunfire through the courtroom. Judge Harmon, steady and composed, broke the stunned silence. "Mr. Mercer," he said, "are you stating that you wish to plead guilty?" With a broken exhale, he muttered again, "Yes." In that instant, the final puzzle piece clicked into place. It was over. Judge Harmon's face darkened as he delivered the final verdict. Life in prison, no possibility of parole. The monster was caged. Justice, after so much pain, had finally prevailed. But even in that moment, all eyes couldn't help but drift to Max, the silent sentinel who had stood guard over Ava from the very start. The dog whose instincts and loyalty had, ultimately, cracked the iron shield of evil. He lay back down at Ava's side quietly, his eyes soft now, but filled with something more powerful than words: victory. Though Mercer's reign of terror had ended, the true heroes were clear: a brave little girl and her dog. Days later, Ava, her voice finally returned, cradled Max's face lovingly. With teary eyes, she whispered two powerful words: "Thank you." Her parents cried softly, knowing Ava was slowly finding her way back. Max, ever loyal, wagged his tail and nuzzled close. Because some bonds, like those formed in the darkest moments, are truly unbreakable. Even in a world full of shadows, there will always be those who stand against the darkness. Sometimes they do it on 4 legs. Some bonds are simply unbreakable. In a world full of darkness, sometimes the bravest heroes don't wear badges. They walk quietly beside us on 4 legs. But what about you? Do you believe animals can sense evil, even when humans can't? Please share your thoughts in the comments below